Mark is sitting at a bar with his co-workers and the Super Bowl is on every screen. Everyone around him is screaming, high-fiving and groaning at bad calls, and Mark is just sitting there, nodding along, pretending to care. He doesn't. He's never cared about football, not once in his entire life, and here's what's strange, he feels guilty about it, like something is wrong with him, like he's missing a piece that everyone else was born with. If you've never cared about football and wondered why, you're about to understand your own brain a lot better. Let's start with what's actually happening when someone loves football, because this explains why Mark's brain works differently. Sports fandom is one of the most powerful forms of tribal bonding humans have. When you watch your team play, your brain releases the same chemicals it would release if you were actually in the battle yourself. Testosterone goes up during the game. Cortisol spikes when your team is losing. Dopamine floods your brain when they score. Your body literally thinks you're part of the fight. This is leftover programming from thousands of years ago when belonging to a tribe meant survival. Cheering for the same team creates instant connection with strangers. It gives you something to talk about with anyone. It makes you feel like part of something bigger than yourself. Mark's brain just never latched onto this. And that's not a flaw, it's just a different wiring. See, tribal bonding can attach to lots of different things. Some people's brains attach it to sports. Other people's brains attach it to music, or politics, or video games, or their careers, or 100 other things. Mark's brain found its tribes elsewhere. Football just never became one of them. But here's where it gets socially complicated for people like Mark. Football isn't just a sport in most places. It's a social currency. It's what people talk about at work on Monday. It's how strangers break the ice. It's how fathers bond with sons. It's how entire friend groups organize their weekends from September to February. When you don't watch football, you're not just missing a game. You're missing a language that everyone around you speaks fluently. Mark has learned to fake it just enough to survive these conversations. He knows a few team names. He can nod at the right moments. He's learned phrases like, "Yeah, that call was terrible," that work in almost any situation. But inside, he's just waiting for the conversation to move on to something he actually cares about. And this is exhausting in a way that football fans never have to think about. Here's something interesting about Mark's psychology, though. Research shows that people who don't follow mainstream interests often score higher on certain personality traits. They tend to be more independent-minded. They're less influenced by social pressure. They're more comfortable being different from the group. This doesn't mean they're better than football fans. It just means their brains prioritize different things. A football fan's brain gets huge rewards from shared group experiences. Mark's brain gets bigger rewards from pursuing his own interests even when nobody around him shares them. Neither is right or wrong. They're just different operating systems. But here's where society makes it weird for people like Mark. There's an unspoken assumption that everyone should care about football. When someone finds out Mark doesn't watch, they react like he just said he doesn't eat food. Wait, really? Not at all? Not even the Super Bowl? They're genuinely confused because in their world, football is just what people do. Some people get almost offended, like Mark is judging them for caring about something he doesn't care about. He's not. He just doesn't share the interest. But his lack of enthusiasm feels like criticism to people who are really invested. Mark has learned to be careful about how he explains this. If he says, "I don't like football," people hear, "I think football is stupid and you're stupid for liking it." So instead, he says things like, "I never really got into it," or "I didn't grow up watching it." These feel softer somehow, like it's not his fault rather than a choice he's making. The psychology here is fascinating. Mark is managing other people's emotions about his own preferences. He's learned that his honest feelings make others uncomfortable, so he softens them to keep the peace. Now, let's talk about what Mark actually does with all that time everyone else spends watching football. The average football fan watches about 6 hours of games per week during the season. That's over 100 hours between September and February. Mark has all those hours back. He reads more. He works on projects. He spends time on hobbies that most people say they don't have time for. This isn't about being productive. It's about following your actual interests instead of interests you're supposed to have. Mark genuinely enjoys how he spends his Sundays. He's not sitting there wishing he cared about football. He's doing things that his brain actually finds rewarding, and here's something that surprises a lot of football fans when they hear it. Mark doesn't feel like he's missing out. The emotions that fans feel during a game, the highs and lows, the tension, the excitement, Mark gets those same feelings from other things. His brain just wired them to different activities. But there's a social cost that Mark does pay, and it's worth being honest about. He's missed out on bonding moments. There are friendships he never quite deepened because the other person's main interest was football and they ran out of things to talk about. There are work relationships that stayed surface level because he couldn't join the Monday morning conversations. There are family gatherings where he sat quietly while everyone else had a shared experience he wasn't part of. This is real. Mark isn't broken for not caring about football, but he does live in a world where caring about football opens doors that stay closed for him. He's found his own doors, though. He's built friendships around the things he does care about. He's found communities online and in person where his interests are the main topic. He's learned that the bonding football provides isn't the only kind of bonding that exists. It's just the most visible one in his culture. Here's something Mark realized that changed how he thinks about all of this. Football fans aren't really watching football, they're watching their team. They're watching their friends watch. They're watching a story unfold that they've been following for years. The game itself is just the vehicle for all these other psychological needs: belonging, excitement, shared identity, hope, drama. Mark gets all those same needs met through other things. He has stories he follows, he has communities he belongs to, he has sources of excitement and hope and drama. They just don't involve a ball and a field. Once he understood this, he stopped feeling like something was wrong with him. His brain isn't missing the football gene, it just found different ways to meet the same human needs that football meets for other people. The only real difference is that his way doesn't come with 100 million other people doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. And honestly, that's fine with him. Some people find deep meaning and joy in football. Mark finds it elsewhere. Both are valid, both are human, both are just brains doing what brains do, finding things to care about in a world full of options. Mark still goes to the Super Bowl parties. He still sits at the bar with his co-workers during the playoffs. He's learned to enjoy the food and the company even when the game means nothing to him. He's stopped pretending to care, but he's also stopped feeling bad about not caring. Drop a comment if you've never understood the football obsession either. I know you're out there.